in the middle of reactivity, begin to train yourself to be silent. In the heat, when the heat of the reaction is rising up, which happens like that, of course, but start to train yourself to pause and be silent. I've talked about this before, endlessly. That pause, that silence, is the end, the death of reactivity. Reactivity is an instant movement of the nervous system and the mind and the emotion, of course. But even in that, there's the possibility of awareness. Even in those moments, there's the possibility to say, well, take a pause, take a moment, be still, and see, what am I getting involved in here? What shenanigans, what complicity, what complexity, what entanglement am I getting involved in here? Because most reactivity, when it dies down again, is seen to be absurd and destructive and painful and often violent, whether that violence is a physical but usually emotional. And it's usually something that we need to soften around afterwards. Forgiveness. Maybe the reactivity carries shame and guilt. Why did I do that again? Why did I let myself fall into reactivity again? So reactivity is a key in this conversation. It calls us again and again, right? This reactivity, whether there are grades of reactivity from the milder to the very extreme. And I think we all know all of those levels. But all of it takes us away from our true essence. And all of it is painful and brings suffering, both to self and whatever is being reacted to. It could be a lover, a parent, a child, an animal, a creature, a friend, the world. Doesn't matter, it's always the same thing. It's always the same reactivity. And I think most people struggle with reactivity. And so we have to keep talking about reactivity, because there is a way through. We're not just slaves to it. And as we come out of certain unconsciousness, these are unconscious patterns living themselves out in us. And so there is, as we come out of that on the spiritual or even the healing path, we get to see our reactivity and maybe start to see that we're not just slaves to it. We're not just completely entwined with it, but that neither do we just have a choice to turn it off when we don't like it, because you know that once it activates and once it starts, it's like a veil. It's like some other being enters us. It's like mysterious, almost mysterious, only it's really not. And there's an opportunity in there, but the opportunity is not just to modify the behavior, but to take a moment and to stop and to see, because seeing is crucial. When we see, we have a choice. The seeing is the doorway. That's all. And if we pause enough, if we pause just enough And in that pause is it. In the pause, in the silence, in that moment, because in that is the death of the self. In that is the loosening of the nervous system. In that is the beginning of freedom. Even in the midst of the storm, even in the whirlwind that's taking place, and to develop the capacity to do that, there's no real practice for it. There's just the willingness. In the midst of reactivity, pause, silence, awareness. See it. And when you see it, then you get the choice. And the choice can be a difficult one because of the momentum of the reactivity. The self that's risen up like a snake, coiled, ready to react. That's all it wants to do, is to be right or defend itself. Both are the same thing. To attack or defend. Attack or defend. Like it's sort of suddenly engaged in a life and death struggle. Because for the self, it is. But it's not the truth of things. It's not the truth. It's some ghost almost. A ghost of the past that's come along. Suddenly rises up in reactivity, fight or flight, attack or defend, live or die. And in these micro moments, we're blind. But even in those micro moments, should we be willing, you start to get to see. And if you start to get to see, hold on, then you have a choice. It's not an easy choice, because you can deflate that reactivity, deflate that mechanism, dissolve it a little bit, soften it. Soften this just a bit. And that softening deflates it, takes the wind out of it. And you can relax a little bit. And the heat comes out of it just a bit. And so there we are. This is the micro movements of reactivity in which there is still the opportunity to be the eye of the storm. And you might fail every single time but one. But that one is the doorway. Because then it becomes more interesting. Because then you realize you're not just a slave to the reactivity. You're not just entrapped in the movement, the momentum of reactivity. That there's a deeper opportunity, just a little bit, a little window that is open still to say no, I'm not going. And that's the death. That's what I said. That's the death, because the tight fist of self can't go anywhere. But the momentum is so strong, but it can't go anywhere, because through your seeing, you've disarmed it. And so in disarming it, it kind of, what do I do? What happens now? And that's the death. The what happens now, I don't know what to do. And something opens, because you've returned to some equanimity. You've returned. Never mind what it was about. Maybe you were right, maybe you were wrong. Maybe there's been an insult. Maybe. But we're talking about a deeper spiritual growth here. where that stuff, the fighting on the surface for who's right and who's wrong, has to be released at a certain point. This is not about being weak or being subservient or just rolling over and being a victim. This is becoming a master of oneself. So that the choice is yours. So that if there's something that needs to be engaged with, you're not engaging with it from the level of reactivity. Because reactivity is losing, always. There is nothing to be won in reactivity for anybody. Reactivity is being out of control. Is being a slave to your nervous system or the past. And surely the whole point, in a way, of part of the spiritual journey is not just to seek enlightenment, not just to seek awakening, but actually to become a master of oneself. In a good way, in a non-suppressive way. This is the end of suppression. Inner suppression. It's not playing the same game as the game of conditioning, the past conditioned self, which is all about suppression. Suppression and bypassing and denial. This is not that. This is an inner mastery of oneself, which has all the power in it to stay master of oneself, even in the storm, even in the reactivity, even in the maelstrom, to be able to stay like this. So the awareness and equanimity, compassion, grace, of course, love, are always coming from the place of presence. But this has to be developed. And part of the way of developing it is to become more intimate with reactivity, not less. Not to see it just as a problem that gets in the way of awakening or freedom, but actually that how we are in the reactivity is a doorway to freedom, to mastery, to equanimity. It's the doorway, but we must become more intimate with it. Not just see it as some aggravation or problem. So there we are.